China's October commemoration of the Communist Party's 70 years in power was extravagant, artistic and disciplined. It ushered in the next decade with similar verve as the 60th anniversary 10 years earlier, but with one significant difference. Back then, Beijing had just hosted the lavish 2008 Olympic Games with panache and style, portraying a country in a way that had won it global admiration. At the time, Western democracies were reeling from the financial crisis, and their attempts to export democratic values to alien cultures lay smouldering in the deserts of Iraq. Beijing commanded the stage as the go-to capital for trade without too many questions being asked. I'm your host Kasim, and thanks for joining me for another KJ vid. In this video, in context of China's anniversary of the Communist Party's 70 years in power, we will discuss the status of China in global politics and what the future holds for it. But just before we begin, we would like to give a special shout out to Humphrey Hawksley, who is the author of this video. Hawksley is the author of 2 thrillers of the Rake Ozena series, which are set at each end of the Northern Sea passages: Man on Ice right on the US-Russian border, and Man on Edge in northern Norway in the Russian bastion of defence. The books are a must-read to learn about the potential type of scenarios that could occur if a clash occurred over the Arctic. You can buy a copy of the books on www.manonice.co.uk. We strongly recommend them and can promise you will not be disappointed. As China waved its checkbook, an understanding emerged that this welcome and wealthy investor should be treated as a player among equals, with its way of doing things accepted without challenge. China was set on the path of rapid global expansion. 10 years later, it is coming to terms with the reality that this is not as easy as imagined. As a rising power looking to occupy new ground, it is inevitably facing resistance by those already holding that ground. Beijing appears to have been caught by surprise, dazzled like a rabbit in headlights, and there may need to be a rethinking of pace and approach. Many obstacles are being laid down to jeopardize China's advance. Outflanked on many fronts, it needs to choose its battles carefully. So far it has not. The drivers come from the Trump administration's trade war, which has given a momentum to the unleashing of anti-China sentiment stretching from tiny Nauru in the Pacific to Brussels in the vast European Union. It began with accusations of colonial-style bullying, the trapping of poor countries in debt, currency manipulation, technology theft, and political interference against democracies. All these are issues that had a chance of quiet diplomatic resolution. But instead of tensions calming, they have been inflamed to a level that makes it difficult to see how business could ever return to normal. One of the rawest wake-up calls came from the real on-the-ground threat in Pakistan's province of Balochistan, where insurgents have attacked the Chinese consulate and installations connected to the massive China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project, exposing a dark underbelly to the much-heralded Belt and Road Initiative. The lives of Chinese workers are now at risk. Simultaneously, Beijing has turned a spotlight onto another underbelly that to the west is like a red rag to a bull: the organised mass violation of human rights. 1 million or more Muslim Uyghurs are being incarcerated in prison camps in Xinjiang in an attempt to re-educate them away from Islam and toward a mindset that complies with Chinese values. The latest reports from there allege routine rape, torture and medical experiments on prisoners. At the same time, Beijing has flouted an international court ruling and deployed missiles and warplanes to its illegal military bases in the South China Sea, effectively putting a vital global shipping route under its control. This direct confrontation against the West now coincides with unrest in Hong Kong, which with its educated and usually disciplined population shows up flaws in the Chinese leadership on many levels. The most basic is that it rips apart the Communist Party belief that it can retain control if it continues to deliver economic growth and raise standards of living. The thesis espoused by the late Deng Xiaoping that to get rich is glorious might have worked well when poverty was acute and Hong Kong was ruled by a benevolent faraway colonial power. But in today's climate, wealth is not everything. As petrol bombs flare up against Hong Kong, police lines, protesters are showing they are willing, if needs be, to sacrifice the city's riches to achieve an undefined goal of political independence. Also ripped apart is Beijing's argument that Chinese societies have less a yearning for freedoms enjoyed by the West, ignoring the very painful uprisings experienced over the centuries in Europe and North America as people demanded more of a say on how they were governed. Hong Kong has proven Beijing wrong, underlining that the will of the human spirit can supersede the level of the bank account, which is why this is now a very dangerous place for Beijing to handle. So far, the crisis has shown up the Communist Party for its lack of imagination and flexibility, indeed its lack of confidence. President Xi Jinping's warning that attempts to split China would lead to crushed bodies and shattered bones reflects more the rhetoric of a dictator pushed into a corner than the captivating vision of a president aiming to take the reins of global leadership. It also carries a whiff of desperation, given that another larger territory that China would like under its wing has been split for the same span of 70 years commemorated last month. Indeed, if Xi were looking for shattered bones, he could visit the memorial site of the Battle of Gunning Tao on the Taiwanese island of Kinmen. In October 1949, nationalist troops defeated an invasion from the mainland, running so low on ammunition that they crushed their enemies under tank treads on the beach. Taiwan is now a fully developed democracy and economy. Watching the unfolding situation in Hong Kong, it is convinced it wants nothing to do with being ruled from Beijing at any time in the foreseeable future. China wants a bigger part on the world stage with a lead role in rewriting the current world order, but it is not yet ready. It may have moved too fast and too clumsily, such that those governments that had welcomed the new kid on the block have seen more of its methods and are choosing to keep their distance. America's trade war is prompting companies to relocate to other countries in Asia. The European Union has declared China a systematic rival, and the seas of the Asia Pacific have become theatres of military exercises among governments intent on balancing Chinese expansion. The alliances are loose, and with a diverse mix of cultures, religions and political systems, the participants are described as like-minded, a euphemism that for the time being they prefer an American-led world order to a Chinese-led one. The United States remains by a long stretch the most powerful nation. It has experience in gathering allies, going to war, forging peace and building institutions. It also controls the banking system. These structures have taken decades to put in place, and America has led in two stages, the first after the Second World War and again after the Cold War. China might be wise to take stock, learn from setbacks and bide its time. In war, peace and trade, China has none of America's experience. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. We would like to thank Humphrey Hawksley, who is the author of the Rake Ozena series featuring Man on Ice and Man on Edge, as well as his non-fictional book Asian Waters, The Struggle Over the South China Sea and the Strategy of Chinese Expansion. If you are interested, you can buy his books in the description, they are certainly worth a read. Thanks for watching again, and see you next time.